Have you ever wondered what a world war would look like in the ancient world? Imagine two superpowers locked in a struggle for total domination. One is a land-based republic, disciplined and relentless, with legions that march with terrifying efficiency. The other is a maritime empire, a trading giant built on wealth and naval power, with a near monopoly on the seas. This isn't fiction. This was the reality of the 3rd century BC. This was Rome versus Carthage. This was the Punic Wars, a series of conflicts so immense, so devastating, that they rightfully earned the title of the First World War of Antiquity. Over a century of brutal warfare would unfold, stretching across land and sea, from the shores of Italy to the deserts of Africa. The fate of the Mediterranean would be decided here. So, who were these titans? On one side, Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia. They were Phoenician descendants, masters of the sea, and incredibly wealthy from their vast trade networks. Their influence stretched across North Africa, Spain, and the islands of the Western Mediterranean. Their navy was legendary, their mercenaries fierce, and their city was one of the grandest in the world. On the other side, the Roman Republic, initially a landlocked city-state, Rome had methodically conquered the Italian peninsula.
Alps.
They were a society built on duty, military service, and an unshakable belief in their own destiny. They were farmers and soldiers, not sailors, but what they lacked in naval experience, they made up for in sheer determination and an incredible ability to adapt. The collision was inevitable. Both powers were expanding, and their interests began to clash. The flashpoint was the island of Sicily, a rich prize lying right between them. Both wanted it. Neither would back down. This rivalry for trade, for territory, and for total dominance of the Mediterranean was about to explode into open war. The First Punic War kicked off in 264 BC, a brutal 23-year slog primarily fought over Sicily. At first, it was a classic mismatch. Carthage's powerful navy dominated the seas while Rome's legions were supreme on land. The Romans quickly realized they couldn't win without challenging Carthage at its own game. So in an incredible feat of engineering and ambition, Rome built a massive fleet from scratch, reverse engineering a captured Carthaginian warship. But they knew they couldn't outsail the experienced Carthaginians. So they innovated. They invented a device that would turn a sea battle into a land battle, the corvus. It was a giant, spiked boarding bridge that would drop onto an enemy ship, locking the vessels together and allowing Roman legionaries to swarm across and do what they did best. It was a game changer. The corvus was clumsy and made their ships unstable, but it gave them the edge they needed. After years of grinding warfare and immense losses on both sides, Rome emerged victorious. They seized Sicily and imposed a heavy indemnity on Carthage. Carthage was humiliated, its pride wounded, and its treasury drained. But this was only the beginning. The seeds of a far more personal and devastating conflict had been sown. From the ashes of Carthage's defeat rose one of history's greatest military commanders, Hannibal Barca. His father, Hamilcar, a general in the First War, allegedly made Hannibal swear an oath upon a sacrificial altar to forever be an enemy of Rome. This was a promise Hannibal would keep with terrifying dedication. In 218 BC, he launched the Second Punic War, not with a naval assault, but with one of the most audacious military maneuvers in all of history. He marched his army, including dozens of war elephants, from Spain over the Pyrenees Mountains, and then across the treacherous snow-covered Alps, descending into Italy like an avalanche. The Romans were stunned. Hannibal was in their backyard. What followed was a masterclass in military genius, inflicted 3 catastrophic defeats on the Romans in quick succession. At the Trebia River, he used a concealed ambush. At Lake Trasimene, he trapped an entire Roman army against the water in a perfectly executed ambush from the hills. And then, at Cannae, he achieved the perfect battle, using his famous double envelopment tactic to surround and annihilate a Roman army twice the size of his own. It was one of the bloodiest days in military history. To the Romans, Hannibal wasn't just an enemy general, he was a monster, a master of treachery who never fought fair. Yet, after Cannae with the road to Rome seemingly open, Hannibal made a fateful decision. He didn't march on the city. Historians debate why to this day. Perhaps he lacked the siege equipment, or maybe he hoped Rome's allies would desert them. Whatever the reason, This moment would prove to be a crucial turning point in the war. Rome was on its knees, bleeding and terrified, but Rome did not break. In their darkest hour, they appointed a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus. His strategy was controversial, but brilliant. He refused to engage Hannibal in another open battle. Instead, he shadowed Hannibal's army, launching small-scale raids, cutting off his supply lines, and slowly wearing him down. This Fabian strategy of attrition earned him the nickname the Confrontator, or the Delayer. It was frustrating, but it saved Rome. It gave them time to breathe, to regroup, and to rebuild their shattered legions. While Fabius held Hannibal at bay in Italy, a new Roman hero was rising. A young, brilliant general named Publius Cornelius Scipio. He had survived the disaster at Cannae and had learned from Hannibal's tactics. While the old guard was focused on survival, Scipio took the fight to the enemy, reconquering Roman territories in Spain and proving he could beat Carthaginian commanders. He understood that to defeat Hannibal, Rome needed a Hannibal of its own. Scipio had a bold plan. To beat Hannibal, he had to force him out of Italy. And the only way to do that was to threaten Carthage directly. In 204 BC, he convinced the Roman Senate to let him lead an invasion of North Africa, taking the war to Hannibal's homeland. The gamble worked. Carthage panicked and recalled Hannibal from Italy to defend the city. After 15 years of rampaging through Roman territory, the great enemy was finally going home. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown. In 202 BC, on the plains of Zama, the two greatest generals of the age finally met face to face. Hannibal, with his veteran soldiers but inexperienced cavalry, versus Scipio, with his disciplined legions and superior Numidian cavalry, which he had cleverly won over from Carthage. It was a tactical duel for the ages. Scipio brilliantly countered Hannibal's war elephants, using organized lanes in his formation to let them charge harmlessly through. Then, his superior cavalry drove Hannibal's off the field, before wheeling back to slam into the rear of Hannibal's infantry, just as Hannibal had done to the Romans at Cannae. The trap was sprung. Hannibal's army was crushed. He had been beaten at his own game. Carthage surrendered, and Hannibal, respecting his opponent's genius, accepted defeat with dignity. Scipio, for his incredible victory, would forever be known as Scipio Africanus. For 50 years, an uneasy peace held. Carthage was stripped of its empire, its military, and its wealth. But it began to recover, its commercial spirit undimmed. This recovery made some in Rome deeply nervous. One senator, Cato the Elder, became obsessed with the idea that Carthage remained a threat. He famously ended every speech he gave, no matter the topic, with the same chilling phrase: Carthago delinda est, Carthage must be destroyed. Eventually, Rome's paranoia won out. They found a pretext, and in 149 BC, declared the third and final Punic War. This wasn't a war for territory or influence. It was a war of annihilation, as the Romans besieged the magnificent city for 3 long, brutal years. The Carthaginians, knowing their fate, fought with the courage of despair, but the outcome was never in doubt. In 146 BC, Roman soldiers breached the walls. What followed was a week of horrific street-to-street fighting and slaughter. The city was systematically looted and burned to the ground. Legend says the Romans then plowed the earth and sowed it with salt so that nothing would ever grow there again. Carthage was wiped from the face of the earth. The Punic Wars were over. After more than a century of conflict, Rome stood alone and supreme. There were no more rivals. The Mediterranean Sea truly became Mare Nostrum, our sea. Rome was now the undisputed center of the known world, an empire forged in the fires of this colossal struggle. And Carthage became a memory, a ghost, a cautionary tale of a civilization that dared to challenge Rome and lost everything. The epic clash of these two ancient titans reshaped the course of history forever, proving that when civilizations collide, the world is never the same. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest conflicts, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic stories from the past. Thanks for watching.